Welcome to episode 1 of our tutorial series, and where we will demonstrate how to develop your apps with Overledger integrations. In this episode, we will be showcasing how easy it is to deploy smart contracts and interact with them using the Make integration.
Today we're going to demonstrate the Overledger and Make integration, specifically how to transfer a ERC20 token using the Prepare a Transfer of Fungible Tokens module that you see here. So we start off with a webhook, which gives us an endpoint. To the endpoint, we're going to be sending our request data, which I'll show you on Postman later. Then we will use the Prepare a Transfer of Fungible Tokens Overledger Make module. And you can see here we can specify the instances, technology, and from the incoming request we input the network ID, the smart contract ID, the token receiver, and the token amount. The response from this we will pass to the JSON module in Make. So in this one we want to transfer the native data response into JSON format. Then we can call the sign a transaction Overledger module. From that we'll pass in from our previous request the request ID and the resulting JSON string from the JSON module. The signed response from that is then passed to the executed signed token transfer transaction. So we just pass in the signed and request ID data. The result is then input into a MongoDB database for later processing from any other scenario that you need. So let's demonstrate this. So we can click run once to demonstrate it, so we can see the execution and results. Let's wait for some new data. Let's wait for the scenario to get ready. Okay, it's ready to accept data. We go into Postman now. We have our endpoint given to us by the Make webhook. We then specify in the body the network ID, the contract ID, and the input parameters of the token receiver and the token amount. So let's send that to our endpoint. If we go back, you'll see all the modules go green, indicating they were executed successfully. And if we look at our final module, the MongoDB, we will see that we've entered the pending state with the transactions pending and some data about the transaction, including the transaction ID. So let's grab this and have a look at it on the Block Explorer. As you can see there, it's pending at the moment, but you'll notice it has been transmitted to the blockchain. We're going to demonstrate how you can use Make to invoke a smart contract function and record the resulting transaction in a MongoDB. So let's have a look at our Make scenario. We start off with a webhook, which exposes an endpoint. We take the input parameters, which I'll show you in a moment in Postman, and convert it to JSON. We then use the Overledger module to invoke to prepare a smart contract transaction. We take the values for network, smart contract ID, and function name from the incoming request to the webhook, and we take the JSON string, which was taken from the transform to JSON module, and put it into the input parameters. Once the transaction has been prepared, we use again the transform to JSON module to take the native data and convert it to JSON again. We can then use the sign a transaction module in Overledger to sign that native data. We can take the request ID from our second stage in the prepare. We're saying we want to sign this transaction using the CTA transaction signer. And then we're going to pass in the JSON string created from our native data transform to JSON module at the previous stage. Once we've signed the transaction, we can use the execute a signed smart contract invoke transaction module. We just need to supply the signed data from the previous step and the request ID. and that will send it to Overledger for execution. And then finally, we want to record in our database, so we can use the make MongoDB module, which allows you to store some data. You can define the data structure, and then we're just going to pass in the appropriate values in our execution response. So let's see that in action. We can select run once to demonstrate this. We're just going to wait for some new data. I'm going to open Postman, and this is our webhook URL I showed you at the very start. This is the body of the request saying what transaction we want to send. This is all defined in the Overledger documentation. So we're going to perform a transfer function on this smart contract on the Ethereum Sepolia testnet. The input parameters to the transfer function are this address and this amount. So this address will receive this amount of tokens from this contract. So we can press send. And if we jump back to our window, you'll see the green progress across the screen showing those are the stages that were successfully executed. And we will now have a database entry showing this information. So we can grab the transaction ID out of here and check it on the Block Explorer. And that's not the correct URL. Copy text. And there you go, 28 seconds ago we executed our transfer function and we received our 0.03 test tokens from this contract. Thank you.